This is the first and most important thing that I want you to remember, that they are principles. That means you need to apply it to your life and situation. Sometimes when people hear about healthy eating and healthy cooking, they think that it has to be expensive, that they need to import health food from different countries, and then they need to eat like Western folk. But that's not true. So with the principles, we remember that we follow what we learn according to our circumstances. In Thailand is a little different than India. In Thailand, they actually had many varieties of fruits and vegetables. I think here in the southern part of India, there's a greater variety of fruits and vegetables than in the northern part. And so it's wonderful. You can use the different varieties, and that each food has a different type of vitamin and mineral, and that provides what our body needs. So remember, let us utilize the principles and apply them to our situation, especially even for the poorest of the poor who do not have the finances to buy things. They can only afford the things that are locally grown in that season. That's okay. You tell them, do the best you can with what you have. And in fact, those people who are poor, because they do not have the money to buy processed foods, sometimes they can live even healthier. You know, they're the ones that know the secrets of what plants to eat and what plants not to eat. And so if you just ask them, they'll show you. I was in the Philippines last year, and I was just taking a walk, and there were a lot of different fields there. And I saw a lady. She was going by a small stream, and she had a knife, and she was cutting some leaves. And I said, "Oh, can you eat it?" She couldn't speak English, and I couldn't speak their language. And she just smiled at me, laughed at me, and she said, yeah, cut it. And I was like, aha, this is free. This is what God has just allowed to grow rampantly wherever there is water and soil. And they can use it for food. And because it's a green leafy vegetable, it has a lot of vitamins and minerals, the nutrients that our body needs. So in fact, if the people who do not have a lot of money have the right education, actually they can live healthier than people who have a lot of money. So principles, let us remember the principles. A lot of people, they hear about healthy eating and healthy living, and they say, we don't know what to do. And so we just give them a few guidelines, and they just apply it to the normal, typical foods that they normally cook and eat. When we went to Delhi for the very first time, there were a couple of employees that worked to take care of the guest houses, guest rooms, and cooking for the guests. They're not even Adventists, so they probably never even heard the health message, but they were asked to cook without oil, without chilies, without sugar, in this way. And at first, they didn't know what to do. But we just told them, okay, instead of using oil, just use water. Instead of using chilies, don't put anything, don't replace it with anything, just don't put any in there. And then instead of using sugar, and in typical cooking, we don't need sugar. But when we have salads, and we make the salad dressing, we may put a little bit of sweetener just for the flavor. And so instead of using white refined sugar, use instead a raw sugar, like honey, or here in this country, it's jaggery, I think. Yes. And I don't know, whatever raw, natural sweeteners you can use, you can utilize a very small amount, and it's okay. And so even with these few principles, they were able to learn, and they started implementing it to the foods that you always eat. And after a while, I think they got the hang of it. When you do water fasting, fruit fasting, or temperance fasting, what happens to your taste buds? They change. They become regenerated. And so the foods that you used to eat, when you taste them, they'll be too spicy, they'll be too salty, too sweet. But people who haven't gone through the fasting, when they eat the foods that we cook, they'll say, it doesn't taste so good. So actually there's a great benefit of doing this cleanse for our bodies to reset our taste buds. So let's learn the healthy eating and cooking principles. And I hope with your good brains, I know you are good students, that you will be able to come up with some great ideas to apply to the cooking that you enjoy. Unfortunately, I don't know Indian cooking, so I cannot teach you healthy Indian cooking. I can only teach you the principles. I don't even know how to cook Korean food very well. My cooking is more of a Western style, American style, healthy, vegetarian, vegan cooking. So I can only tell you what I know. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide into two sections, what we should eat and how we should eat, and what we should not eat. And because you're good students, and because it's after lunch, I want you to participate so that you don't fall asleep. What we should eat, and what we should not eat. So start thinking, should we eat and what should we not eat? So let's start with what we should eat. Now we've already learned what we should eat according to the Bible. Does anyone remember the verse? Genesis 1:29. And what does God tell us to eat? Seed-bearing plants and seed-bearing fruits. Okay, so plants and fruits, good. Now, that's the first principle. And so Mrs. Choi has already talked to you about this, of what to eat according to Genesis 1:29, and what not to eat according to Genesis 1, I believe, 26 and 28, right? So then we'll talk about what not to eat a little bit later. The second principle that I want you to remember is to remember to eat the rainbow. In the rainbow, we have all the different colors. The rainbow, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. So let's remember to eat the rainbow as we eat our foods. You know, Indian food has a tendency to look very yellow. I think all the masalas and even when you make biryani or you make that, what is that called when you mix the dal and the rice? Khichdi? Yeah, even when it's all kind of yellow colored. Or maybe if you put chilies, maybe it'll get, I don't know, red or green colored. Let's remember to eat the rainbow. Find the foods that are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and continue to eat a different thing as much as possible every single day. So for example, actually in India, they tend to eat a lot of potatoes, I see. Is that true? Yeah. And potatoes have a lot of starch. And so it's high in carbohydrates. And I'm going to tell you more about that, the specifics a little bit later. But when you eat a lot of potatoes, it's as if you're eating a lot of rice, which Indians all tend to do anyway. And so there's a high concentration of carbohydrates that's consumed. So let's think of other kinds of foods that cover the rainbow. Okay, tell me something of kind of food that's red.
Tomato.
Apple, tomato. Orange. Oranges. What else?
Carrots.
Carrots. What else? Capsicum. Good. No, wait. Now, yellow. What's yellow? Bananas. What else is yellow?
There are some red bananas.
Red bananas too? Okay, great. Thank you for telling me. Okay, what else do we have that's yellow? How about a vegetable that's yellow? Squash. Capsicum. Okay, good. Okay, how about green? A lot of green. Beans. Wheat is green? Brown. Let's see. What is it? Ladyfinger, yes? Guava, leafy green, leafy vegetables, good. So many green apples, a lot of green. Okay, how about the blue purple? Brinjal, that's eggplant. Cabbage. Okay, good. What else? Eggplant, yes. Blueberries, that's right. Okay, you have already told me a variety of the foods that cover the rainbow. So keep thinking about the different foods. And especially when the foods are in season, remember to utilize them, of course, but try to get other foods if possible that can contribute to the addition of the variety of foods to eat in one season. Okay, so eat the rainbow. Sorry?
Greens, big chia. In rainbow we have the colors. Violet, indigo, big chia. We used to say 7 colors. 7 colors of the rainbow.
Yeah.
Shortly we say Vipchia.
Oh, that's a word in Tamil?
English.
What is it?
It's a mnemonic.
Oh, what is it spelled? How is it spelled? Huh? Okay, one person.
Violet,
V,
indigo,
indigo,
Blue,
blue,
green,
green, yellow, orange, red. You cannot call that English. Come on. An acronym. Okay, so those are the colors you're saying of the rainbow. That's how you remember, huh? Is that how you remember in India?
yes,
Oh, so everyone knows, right? So how do you pronounce it? Vibgyor? Vibgyor.
Vipgios,
Vibgyor. Okay, that's a new one for me. It's an acronym. Okay. That's why I was like, I don't know that word in English. I never learned that one. Okay, thank you. Please remember just the rainbow and Vibgyor. All right. Secondly, number 3, for the third one, we have the principle of eating whole food, plant-based. Why is it whole food and plant-based? Plant-based is what we already discovered in Genesis 1:29, that we need to eat of the plants and the fruits that God has made, but it also needs to be whole foods. Let me do the lecturing, and then when I ask for questions at that time, please answer. So when I'm talking about whole foods, I'm talking about the ones that are in the state in which God created them. So, oranges. Instead of drinking orange juice, eat the whole orange. When you drink the juice, you are missing the fiber. And so, imagine that you're a diabetic. If you're a diabetic, maybe you would eat 2 oranges and you'd be satisfied. But when you start drinking orange juice, maybe you need to squeeze 5 oranges in order to drink 1 cup or 1 glass. And in that sense, you're going to drink a lot of extra sugars that your body does not need, okay? So if at all possible, eat whole foods, plant-based. Now that doesn't mean that you will never drink orange juice. Maybe once in a while you can drink some juice, okay? And but if you're diabetic, I wouldn't. Maybe you can use it as an emergency. Like if your blood sugar drops suddenly, you can drink a little bit of orange juice so that your blood sugar can rise up, okay? What are things? When I first came to China, I first ate sugar cane. You guys eat sugar cane here, right? Yes. And you know how it grows in the big giant sticks? Well, I had no idea about that back then. And you know what? My friends taught me to cut about, this length of a sugar cane, and then you chew it and you suck the juice, right? Oh, okay, that's nice. And after you chew that much, your mouth gets tired, and then you say, okay, that's enough. But if you go to, those street vendors, they have the machine where they juice the sugar cane, and then you drink a nice cup. How many feet of sugar cane do you think you're consuming in that juice? I'm not sure. Maybe it's more than a meter. I don't know. And so that's why eating whole foods, plant-based, is very important for our health. Okay? So make sure you include the fiber. The next principle is there is a difference between health foods versus vegetarian foods. Now, you can be a vegetarian, but you can be unhealthy. In fact, I was a vegetarian since I was 5 years old, and I probably didn't really eat healthy until a few years ago. And so I was a vegetarian, but I ate all the ice cream and chocolate and chips, the processed foods. I love to go out to eat and eat at restaurants, at fast food restaurants. And so even though I was vegetarian, I was not healthy. I was overweight. I was, just unhealthy. So there's a difference between health foods and vegetarian. And I'm so glad Mrs. Troy talked about how vegetarianism can become an idol, right? So we don't boast about being vegetarian. We just simply want to live according to God's way. And His way tells us to eat healthy vegetarian. So even there are some things that are considered health foods, for example, like tofu. Tofu is processed. Tofu comes from the yellow bean, right? The soybean. And so the soybean is the whole food, but once we start processing it and making it into tofu, yes, is a vegetarian food, but you cannot consider it a whole food that's a health food. So that doesn't mean don't use tofu. That means use less tofu. So if you understand that it's not for your perfect, it's not perfectly whole food, okay, use it once in a while, maybe, here you don't use tofu, right? But like in Asian countries, you use some? Yes. Okay. So use it maybe once every 2 days or so. Don't use it like for every single meal. Sometimes vegetarians think that tofu is a health food, and so then they put it into every single meal, and it's not necessarily good for you. It's better to eat the whole soybean and cook it. Okay. Also, not only that, but processed vegetarian meats. Do you guys have veggie meats here? Soy meats or gluten, things like that? Same thing with those. They call it what?
Meal maker.
Meal maker. Wow, that's an interesting name. Okay. What's that? Soya chunks. Yes. Whatever names they are fake meat and they are processed. And so therefore, the more processed they are, the less often we should eat. They have some kind of veggie soy products called TVP. Do you know what that is? It's a dry kind of soy product, but it seems like it's very simple, right? It's very tasteless. They don't add a lot of different flavorings and things. So that's simpler, and so maybe it's not so bad as the other processed veggie meats. In America, we have some delicious veggie meats, but they are not healthy. At the end, we're going to take questions too, so if you have any questions, go ahead and jot them down. All right. Now, seasoning is something that I want to talk about. When we season, the primary seasoning that we use is what? What did you say? That we should use? Yes. Today we're talking about what we should use. So, you scared me. I was like, I hope I didn't teach you the wrong things. What we should use for seasoning, our primary seasoning is salt. And the salt that we use, it should be either the rock salt or sea salt. And even better than sea salt is actually rock salt. These days in the ocean, there are so many pollutants, so many problems in the ocean. Also, it's pretty bad. So rock salt, I think you can get very easily here in India. So if you can use rock salt, it's the best. We avoid the table salt that has been chemically enhanced with iodine and such. We want to go natural. One of the main things that people get scared about when they start cooking healthfully is they're scared about the salt. They hear, okay, make sure you cook healthy, and so they only put a little bit of salt. And when you put a little bit of salt, the food is very bland. If it's bland, you don't want to eat it. If it's bland, it's not good for digestion. So it's very important to come to the right understanding, the right medium of how much salt to use. And so we don't want to undersalt it, but we don't want to make it salty, too salty. So let's say like you're cooking, right? You put some salt because you're scared, right? Put a little bit of salt. And then you taste it. You're like, it's not good, not good. Okay, put a little bit more salt. It's not so good. it's okay. But at the right amount of salt, suddenly you say, this tastes good. So this is what we need to learn. And as we start cooking and start trying new dishes and making new dishes, that's where we learn the right amount of salt. Even for patients, you don't have to be worried about salt. I mean, if it's too much, then yeah, that's not good. It has to be just the right amount. Okay, don't be scared. When we do the recovery meals after fasting, though, we reduce the salt a bit. So it's not what you would normally eat. So a normal person may taste that recovery food and say, wow, it's so bland. But for those who are coming out of the fast, they'll say, okay, this tastes good. All right, so let's remember that. All right, the next principle is we'll talk about the seasonings later. Yeah. So the next principle is tasty foods. As we cook healthfully, we must make the food taste good. If we don't make the food taste good, nobody will want to stop eating meat and become vegetarian. Okay? This is very important. So as you start cooking healthfully and you start researching and you start trial and error, trying different dishes, find out what is tasty. Usually, what you really like, other people will really like too. So find those things that you really like. Okay? Okay, next, I'm going to teach you the 40-60 principle. When we have a meal, let's make sure to have a 40%, 60% rule. Now the 40% is going to include the carbohydrates. This includes the grains. Sorry, it's so small. If you can't see, let me know and I'll say it again. Included in the grains are, included in the carbs are grains, the starchy vegetables, like potatoes, sweet potatoes, tapioca, cassava, things like that. And it also includes the beans. Beans are what, pulses? Okay, so, yes?
Potato and tapioca is not good for diabetes.
A lot of people say that, potatoes and tapioca is not good for diabetics. But you know what? As you start eating healthfully, and especially for diabetics, as you reduce the portions, then it's not going to make a difference. Okay? But if you know that there's a certain food that causes your blood sugar to spike, you can avoid it. So test it, though. But it's not a blanket statement. Not everyone has the problems with the potatoes and the tapioca. Okay? So listen to my principle first, and then maybe it will make sense. So this 40% will include these carbs, and it will also include the proteins, and it will also include the fats. This is on the 40%. Okay? Carbohydrates, which include grains, starchy vegetables, and the beans, also includes proteins and the fats. Proteins we also get from the beans. Protein we get from tofu, and even from the vegetables, but I'm talking about the main foods that are like densely protein. And then fats, for example, nuts, avocados, seeds. So this should be 40% of your meal. So let's pretend that this is our plate. Whoops. So the 60% includes, what's a bigger portion, 60% or 40%? I want you to remember this, okay? So the 60% will include fresh vegetables. So raw vegetables, cooked vegetables, and fruits. Okay? So the 60% will include vegetables, both cooked and raw in the form of salads. And we're also going to be talking about vegetable fruits. And so that's also included in the raw vegetables. And so fruits in general are the tree fruits. Okay, so now let's look at our plate. Let's think of our plates that we eat at home. So we've got this plate, and what do you usually eat? Like a mountain of rice, some dal, and then what? Little vegetables. So let's say our vegetables are brinjal and our potato, okay? I'll give you the benefit. But what if this is just potato? We've got the rice, we've got the beans, we've got the potato. We have 100% carbs. Oh, so now you can see why you can have many diseases, especially diabetes, high blood pressure. And if you add meat to that, wow, that's a lot of fat. Okay, so then we consume a lot of things that are not helping our body become healthy. Okay, so now we've got to transform our plates. We've got to transform our meal tables. So I'm going to teach you what we did in Thailand. In Thailand, I told you that I somehow got to be in the kitchen and to do some cooking. And so I learned these things really well from Mrs. Choi's daughter, Sanha. And so we would have a tray, and we would have 5 different elements of the meal. And in Bethel, they do more or less this kind of meal. So there are 5 elements to the meal, and what we would have always is 1 grain. You know, 1 grain, and this is a whole grain rice, like brown rice or whatever color rice you have here. Whole grain millet, whole grain oats, whole grain bread, whole grain wheat. Is the broken wheat, is that whole grain? It's whole grain? Okay. Broken wheat. I don't know exactly what else you eat here, but there are many, many varieties, right? So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about grain. The second element is a cooked main dish. And this might be a soup, a vegetable soup. It might be some kind of dal, some kind of beans, or some kind of special cooked main dish. Now, the third element will be a cooked, simple vegetable. Maybe there'll be 1 main vegetable and another vegetable added just for the color, or maybe add onion just to make it tasty. That'll be the cooked, simple vegetable. Then the next element, the 4th element, will be the salad. Now here in India, your definition of salad and my definition of salad is a little bit different. In India, they'll just cut up some raw cucumber, raw tomato, and onions, and say, okay, here's your salad. Well, in America, in my understanding of salad, what we call salad is we have whatever raw vegetables, but we have a sauce together that mixes it. So when I say salad, I'm talking about raw vegetables together with some kind of sauce, okay? Maybe you call it gravy. Yeah, anyway, some kind of, I'm just going to call it sauce because that's what I'll remember. Toppings? See, because toppings we consider something different. We call seasonings something different. Okay, you know what I'm talking about, okay? I'm teaching a new terminology from America. Sauce, dressing. Actually, we call it dressing, but it basically is a sauce. Okay, so the last element is something raw.
Excuse me, that dressing is already preserved food, or you have to make it?
We usually make it, yeah. The dressings that you buy from the store, they are full of the unhealthy things, right? So if there's something that's very healthy, of course you can use it, but by and large, it's not so healthy, so it's easy to make your own. And I'll teach you some of those very simple ways. Okay, the last thing is something raw. And you might say, well, the salad is raw, and then what's this last raw thing? Well, this is more like some carrot sticks, or some cucumber sticks, or some tomato pieces, or some beetroot sticks, or even sweet potato. You can eat raw, and just eat it raw. Something that you can chew and crunch on. Sometimes when you eat, I don't know, maybe it's different in India, but when you eat only soft foods, you just don't feel like satisfied. So sometimes I want something that I can really chew on or something I can crunch on. And so these kinds of raw foods really help to satisfy that. Now, in our meal, if we do not have beans, then it's there's some kind of protein, then it's good to add some kind of nuts. So just a few nuts, even just having 6 or 7 almonds, or maybe 4 walnuts, whole walnuts. Maybe, maybe 8 or 10 peanuts. Just on the side, maybe we can add it just here. And then that will make a complete meal. For people who are patients, it's really important to have the variety and the nutrients that they need to heal. And so we make sure that we have all of these kinds of ingredients. Also, when people are transitioning from meat eating to vegetarian eating, it's very important that you give them a balanced meal, plus you give them some nuts or beans so that they can feel like they're satisfied. Okay, we talked about the order of foods to eat yesterday. So you remember one of the the important things that I want you to remember is about eating the fruits or something sweet first. Okay? And then later, hopefully, Daniel can teach us some more about the other order about eating food. Right. The last thing I want to encourage you about what we should eat and how we should eat is to be creative. Be creative. Although you are here in India and you're used to Indian food, if you learn cuisine from different countries, you can add to your repertoire of your cooking. And you can introduce more things that are still tasty to other people and to your own family. So use the principles, follow them, and make delicious food. Are you inspired? Do you have some ideas? All right. And if you come up with some delicious recipes, please share them with me, okay? So I can learn too. And the more we share with each other, the better, we get more ideas. It's great. And actually, I use the internet a lot to find recipes. So I'll look for vegan recipes. Okay, so let's say that I want to make, a pasta dish. Then I could put in vegan pasta recipes. Then they come up with all these different recipes. And even with Indian food, I actually saw some, they made different Indian dishes vegan. So the vegan means completely without the animal products. So you can get ideas from here. And if you make a group chat on WhatsApp or something, you can also share these recipes, and it's really helpful for one another. There's some people who have never even tried to do healthy cooking. And so they're very nervous when they begin. Don't be nervous and try just one dish. The one dish, follow the principles, and we're going to learn more about what not to use and what not to eat. And by doing that, you're going to be able to find out something that's delicious, right? Then you're going to think, I really want to eat that aloo gobi, but I need to make it healthy. How can I do that? Okay, what are the principles? I cannot use oil. Okay, that's okay. All right, use water. And then you make it delicious, okay? And then you find out, this is delicious. And then you can share with someone, hey, taste this one. Do you think it tastes good? And then, your family members will say, oh, yeah, that tastes delicious. And then after they eat, you can tell them, guess what? There's no oil in that. Guess what? That's 100% healthy. And they're going to be surprised and say, it's not so bad to eat healthfully. All right.
Coconut milk.
Sorry?
Coconut milk and coconuts can be used for cooking. It gives taste.
Yes. If you want to talk about this, we can talk about this now. Okay. Ways to make food tasty. Okay, these are we're going to talk about the seasonings that you can use then. It's actually easier for me to talk about what not to eat first before we talk about what to eat. So can we save this for the end? Actually, I have another part of a lecture that talks about the different salad dressings and sauces. And at that time, that's when I can bring in more of the particular examples. But just remind me, okay, at the end. Because if we cut out the things that we should not eat, it's easier. Okay, so now you can help me here. What are the things that we should not eat, first and foremost? Meat. Now let's put that as animals. All kinds of animals. Now sometimes we need to be specific because people have questions later. Every time someone asks me, is it okay to eat chicken? Is it okay to eat fish? How about insects? How about snakes? You know, like strange things come up. So let's be specific. Don't eat pigs. Don't eat cows. Don't eat chickens. Don't eat fish. Don't eat insects. Don't eat reptiles. Basically, don't eat rats. Please don't eat rats. Basically, I say, if it had a mother, please don't eat it. Okay? Here's a principle. If it had a mother, do not eat it. Okay? Okay, so first, don't eat meat. Second, along with it, animal products. Now here I have to be specific too. So what's included in animal products, especially here in India? Milk. Cheese. Oh, maybe you don't use it here. Yogurt. Ghee. Paneer. What else? Buttermilk. And also included in the milks are not only cow milk, but I heard that I need to say specifically, no camel milk, no buffalo milk, no goat milk, no sheep milk, no all of those animals. So if it comes from an animal, don't drink the milk. What did you say? You said something before eggs. You said something. No, paneer. Curd. What is curd? Okay, so don't do that. Okay, there's several. There's different reasons, and then you'll learn as we continue talking here. Okay, so some people ask about eggs. All right. So eggs is one that's kind of in the middle. Okay, now eggs, at least in America, they are produced by chickens that have antibiotics and different hormones pumped into them. So do you think that it's good to eat those eggs? I don't think so. But if you raise your own chickens and they eat plant-based and the grains, then they're probably okay, right? And so you can utilize the eggs. But in this world, as we are getting closer and closer to the second coming of Jesus, the world is becoming more and more corrupt, not only in behavior, but also in the food. We have the problems with GMO problems, the antibiotics, the hormones, all of these different products that's causing all animal products to become more and more harmful. So I would suggest decreasing the usage of eggs if at all possible. Also, the yolk, the yolk of the egg, the yellow part, it contains the cholesterol, right? So it's not great for your health. So know that about eggs. But that's not a definite no, so keep in mind the principles that I told you. All right, and a big thing for Indians. Some people have a very hard time with this. They think, how in the world can I cook without oil? People really have a conflict because of this. This is something that we have just learned through tradition, through our families and such, but don't be scared, okay? But know how damaging oil is to our bodies when we cook with oil. Because when the oil is heated up to the boiling point, then it becomes carcinogenic. When it becomes carcinogenic, then we eat these carcinogens, and these carcinogens contribute to us getting different diseases like cancer and other things. So oil is a very big one that we need to avoid. Not only that, oil is fat. And as we intake the fat, wow, it causes what? Fat has 9 calories? Is it 9 calories per gram, right? And then everything else has 4 calories per gram. So it has more than double the amount of calories in the fat in oil. So you can see why it's harmful, why it causes our blood to become sticky, why it causes the fat to build up on our blood vessels. Okay, so oil. I'm telling you, you can make delicious foods without oil. You just have to be committed. God will give you wisdom, and He will give you strength to overcome the oil addiction. Okay?
Olive oil on the dressings is okay?
Yes, I'm going to talk about that next. So like I said, oil while cooking is very bad because I told you that it's heated, right? But actually oil that's not heated is mostly bad too. So don't use it. Ellen White recommends using one kind of oil, and that kind of oil is called 100% extra virgin, cold pressed olive oil. So it needs to be extra virgin and it needs to be cold pressed, okay? So then that means it's not mixed with any other oils that have been refined, that have been heated up. And you can use that in your salad dressings, yes. But again, we don't use a large amount, just enough for the dressing.
But not for cooking.
Not for cooking, yes. We don't use any oil for cooking. Now, if there's some kind of like, let's say you have a pancake or something that you need to make on the pan. Okay, well, let me take that back. When you make roti, I heard that the difference between roti and chapati is roti, you don't use any oil. Chapati, you use oil? No. What is it? Opposite?
Roti is directly on fire. Roti is cooked directly on fire.
Roti is cooked directly on the fire. Is that the difference? Made on the stove. Everyone has different. Okay, so I'm just going to call it chapati. So when we use the whole wheat, the atta flour chapati, a lot of times they can cook it without using any oil. They just use the flour, right? And then it cooks perfectly. That is the best way to eat it. But let's say that there is some kind of pancake that you want to make and it sticks to the pan. Then what you can do is you can take a little bit of oil on a paper towel or a napkin, just a little bit, and just wipe it off. Then whatever you're cooking will not stick. Okay? But if as much as possible, try not to use the oil. Now, what was I saying? The 100% extra virgin cold pressed olive oil we can use in the salad dressings. And if there's a certain dish that really requires that taste, then what you can do is you can cook the dish, and then afterwards you can put a little bit of the olive oil, mix it, and then it gives it a little bit of the flavor. Now, some people have asked me about the 100% cold-pressed coconut oil or 100% cold-pressed sesame oil. Can we use that? You know, Ellen White didn't mention those oils, but I would say if you need to use it, definitely don't use it over the fire after the cooking, and very small amounts. Especially coconut oil is a saturated fat. And so it's very, it's still not so great for your health. This reminds me of something very important, a principle to teach you that's very interesting. And this reminds me because of the coconut. Somebody told me this, that you can know how much God wants us to eat of a certain kind of fruit or a food by the way it's packaged, by the way it's grown. So, for example, when we see apples on the tree, then we can just pluck it and eat it. Very simple. Then that means that God is allowing us to eat plentifully of that. But have you ever seen a cashew nut? I heard that the shell's very, very hard, right? You have to take it and you have to very carefully, smash it or something, use some pliers to pry it open. So if it's that difficult to open, then eat a small amount. I know some of you guys have eaten durian before. Wow, Yeah, durian is very delicious. You know why? It has a lot of fat. And when you see the durian fruit, on the outside they have gigantic spikes, thorns on them. And in order to open it, you need a very thick glove and some kind of knife, and then they pry it open like this. Now, if God made the fruit like that, how much should we eat? Less. So I thought this was a very good principle. I went to Hawaii once and I saw the macadamia nuts. Have you ever seen macadamia nuts? Those round ones? They have them here. Yeah, so they gave us this bowl and there were macadamia nuts and some other things in it. And we said, oh, we want to really try this macadamia nut. But we could not open it. We tried to step on it and it doesn't crack open. And we said, how can we eat this? And they said, oh, here, let me give you some pliers. And so we had to use this tool to break it open. And so that's when I learned, even though it's delicious, I should only eat just a little bit. All right. Now, when we cook vegetables, let me say that this is the principle for vegetables. Vegetables need to be fully cooked or fully raw. So the principle is don't use blanched vegetables. So sometimes people do blanching. I'm going to say just blanching. So blanching is when you boil the water and then you put the vegetables inside just for a couple of minutes and then you take it out and then it's still a little crunchy, right? Half cooked, half boiled. And so that's not good for digestion. So it needs to be either completely cooked, thoroughly cooked, or completely raw. Okay, the next principle of what foods we should not eat. Yeah, some people in India don't like me when I say this. And in Thailand too. That's right. Spicy foods. Sorry? Baking vegetables, as long as it's thoroughly cooked, it's no problem. Air fried, as long as it's thoroughly cooked, no problem. Okay, so we should not eat spicy foods. Now, Ellen White describes spicy foods as stimulating, irritating foods. So spicy foods include, number 1, chilies. Number 2, raw garlic, raw onion, raw ginger. What else? Ellen White also tells us that cinnamon and cloves are also a stimulant and an irritant. So there are some things here in India that you utilize a lot, but we should avoid them. So included with the chilies, I want to say black pepper because I know people here use that a lot. Black peppercorn, all of those things, these are irritants. And so what happens is this. I went to Thailand, it's so funny. We went to a restaurant and we tried to order the green papaya salad. And we said, not spicy. And they said, okay, 1 chili. And then we got the food. Oh, it's so hot. The reason is because I don't eat spicy foods. The problem is when you continue to eat the spicy foods, your tongue, your mouth cannot recognize that it's spicy. But your stomach is still sensitive. So when those spicy foods go into your stomach, it causes problems in your stomach, in your digestive system. So keep that in mind. Even though your mouth may not say that it's spicy, your stomach, the rest of your body feels the stimulating, irritating activity. Especially for people who are patients, especially for people when they're doing the recovery meal. We do not put any kind of spice or stimulant there because it could cause them to have indigestion, and it could cause them to have other serious problems. Okay? So do you think that you can live without spicy things? Some of you are convicted already? Anybody? Is somebody kind of on the fence? Is somebody like, nah, I'm not going to give up the chilies? Okay, I want you to continue to think. Maybe this is the first time you've heard this, but truly consider it, because we know that it's bad. It's very harmful for the health, especially if you are here for recovery of your health from a disease. Please, I hope that you will be strictly following all the principles. If you follow the principles, your body can heal. But if you go back to breaking the principles, then your body can't help but go back to becoming sick. Yes. Okay, can we use garlic and raw onions and ginger? Okay, so here's the way that you can use it. So onions, we use a lot in garlic. We use a lot in salads, right? But if we just put raw onions, it's very spicy, it's stimulating. So instead, what I do is I soak it in lime or lemon juice just for 10, 15 minutes, and then the spiciness goes away. You could also soak it in water. Maybe it takes a longer time, 30 minutes or so. And I've heard somebody, Pastor Aurora here in India, he showed me like to put salt on the sliced onions, put salt on it, and then later wash it off. I don't know. But you do get rid of some of the nutrients if you wash it off, so that's not ideal. So for raw onions, just get rid of the spiciness before you use it raw. For raw garlic, instead of using raw garlic, steam it. When you steam it for a few minutes, then it gets rid of the spiciness. And then you could use it in the salads. Okay? So just remember the principle. The principle is we don't want to eat the spicy, stimulating, irritating foods.
But they say onion and garlic, they are good in cutting cholesterol and it's good for the health. Raw ones.
Yeah?
Ginger also, even for cancer.
You know, this is what since I've been reading Ellen White's writings and I've been, learning about health, this is what I found out. There are foods that we don't normally eat, but we use as medicine. So Ellen White, I think she mentions cayenne pepper. It's a spicy pepper. But do you know how we use it? When you have a cold. We don't use it every day. So we don't use it as an excuse. Oh yeah, yes, now I can eat some chilies. Yes, I can eat some pepper. No, it's used as a medicine. So I think that, if you get a cold and you need to chew on a raw piece of garlic, yeah, use it as medicine. Just make sure it doesn't harm your body in another way,
Cinnamon and cardamom, do they come under this spice?
I've never seen cardamom. I don't know. Daniel, do you know if cardamom is included anywhere in the do not use of spices? Don't know. Cardamom? Yeah. Specifically, I've seen Ellen White write about cinnamon and cloves. Do you know anything about that? Cinnamon and cloves, not using them and such? Nutmeg.
Way too stimulating, it's better not. I mean, in some cases, like you said, the cayenne, for medicinal purposes, there are exceptions.
Yes.
When we make the exception rule day after day, now we're in trouble.
That's right. So you heard what he said, right? When we make the exception the rule for day after day, that's what causes the problems. This is also reminds...
They use a lot of pesticide for growing cardamom. A lot of pesticides, so it's not so good.
Okay. Another one of the things that we say that we do not use is white rice, right? What do they call it? Polished rice here? Yeah. We don't use white rice, but when people have these stomach ulcers or stomach problems, then we use the white rice porridge as a medicinal healing thing. But we don't recommend eating it every day because it doesn't have a lot of nutritional value. Okay? So typically, we do not, wait for me, let me finish my whole presentation because I might answer your question and then ask me the questions, okay? Jot it down if you think you'll forget. Okay, so white rice, white processed flour. What's that?
Maida. It's called Maida.
Maida. We don't consider it a health food, okay? Because it's taken off the husk, the protein bit of it, the fiber bit of it, so it's not a whole food. So here we use white rice a lot, right? So is there a substitute for that? Brown rice, red rice. Oh, there's a lot of variety. So we just need to have that commitment to search and find it, yes? And if it's too expensive, if you cut down on meat, you'll save a lot of money. And you can buy the brown rice and black rice. Okay, what is not good for our health that we should not eat? Processed foods. Packaged foods, junk foods, that is not good for our health. It's not healthy foods. Do we need examples? Okay, what are the examples of junk food, processed foods that we shouldn't eat? Chips, biscuits, potato chips, fried rice, all bakery items, pizza. What is it? I don't know what that is. Burgers. You know what? I asked this question to my group in Kunti last time, and it was so fun because I was telling them that even though they may be processed foods, burgers and pizza is not really processed, but it's not a healthy food. But the beauty is that you can make them healthy. And so I was describing to them. Do you want me to describe it to you?
Yes.
They said, there's this one pastor, after I described it, he said, "Ma'am, water is forming in my mouth." It was so cute. Okay, so I was teaching them how I make the healthy pizza and healthy burgers because I'm from America and sometimes I crave these kinds of foods. So for the pizza, I make the crust with the atta flour, whole wheat, and then bacon. And then I make my own sauce with tomatoes and garlic and onion and some seasonings. Okay, I'll boil it and then make it into a nice sauce. Then I'll get some vegetables, some mushrooms together with some basil and onions, and then I'll saute them together and then put it on top. Cut up some fresh pineapple, put it on top there. Are you salivating? No, I'm just kidding. And then I make a vegan cheese sauce that is made from coconut milk. So I use coconut milk and I put a little bit of cornstarch, something to make it thicker, some salt. I put a little bit of turmeric powder and mix it a yellow color. And if I have nutritional yeast flakes, I'll put it inside there. But if I don't use it. And then it makes like a cheesy sauce, right? And then I put it on top, and then I bake it, and it's delicious. And then the same thing for the burgers. Then I'll bake the buns, like this with the whole wheat atta flour. And yeah, you have to be really careful about baking bread. It has to rise properly if you're using yeast. If it does not rise properly, it can cause indigestion and it can be very harmful, especially for patients. Ellen White writes about an instance where the bread did not rise properly, and so the family threw it out. Well, somebody took the leftover food that was thrown out and gave it to the pigs. The next day, they went to go take care of the pigs, and the pigs were dead. From this poorly risen loaf of bread, the pigs died. So then you can understand how this improperly baked bread is very harmful for our bodies. Okay, so when we bake bread, make sure it rises properly. Okay, so back to the burger. So we make the roll basically, and I cut it in half, and that becomes the bun. And then I make the patty, and I just make it out of different kinds of beans and whatever vegetables I have. Even maybe if I made breakfast and I had some vegetables there, whatever I have left over, then I'll just put it into this mix together with my beans. And then I'll put some atta flour in there just to make it stick together, and maybe some oats. And then I make the patties, form into the round circle like this, and then I cook it on the stove, and they're patties. So I'll put that, and then I'll get some lettuce, tomatoes, and onion slice that's been soaked in lime juice, but then I wash off the lime juice because I don't want to taste lime in my burger. And then I make some kind of sauce, for example, like that coconut cheese sauce. And I put it in there, close it, and there you have a burger. It's 100% vegan, it's 100% healthy. And so this is my American-style food example for you to make the delicious Indian-style foods that you like to eat. Okay.
We also make pizza. We can use nutritional yeast and cashew for the cheese.
Yeah, there are many ways to make this kind of cheesy, creamy sauce. Different kinds of nuts you can use. Yeah, there's so many people who have tried different things. It's all on the internet, and then you can network with different people who have been doing it a little bit longer than you have. Okay. All right. So besides processed foods, we do not use flavor enhancers like MSG. We heard that here in India they don't really use that. Is that true? Is it true that they don't use it? I bet they do, at least in the chips and the processed packaged foods, right? Okay. So that is definitely not good for your health. Okay, we do not use chemically produced salt. We've talked about that already. Chemically produced salt. We already talked about sugar. Don't use refined sugar. We said instead to use raw sugars in a limited amount. And next, do not use fermented foods. Someone mentioned pickles. I ignored you because I knew I was going to talk about this later. Pickles. Pickles are usually used are made with vinegar, right? And that pickling process is harmful for our health in that it ferments outside of the body. If you take inside a food into your body that's already fermented, then once it enters your digestive system, then it spoils, it rots. And when food spoils and rots inside your digestive system, that's what produces bad blood. But I've heard that you make pickles from salt too, right?
Yeah.
Salt and lemon juice, that's okay. I mean, I would reduce the amount of salt if at all possible, but that's okay. Hold on. Yeah, no sugar and no chili though. Yeah. Wait, let me think for a second. Fermented foods. What else do you guys eat that are fermented foods? Idlis. Yeah, dosas. Is that bad for your health? I don't know.
Good bacteria.
Okay, time out. According to principle, anything that's fermented outside the body goes inside the body and spoils. And so when you smell the idli, and maybe the dosas too, it smells sour.
We can make dosas without fermenting.
Great, you can make...
Tasty as instantly we can make with millets, brown rice.
Fantastic. It sounds like there's some ladies here who have more already experience in cooking Indian foods healthfully, so they can teach you how to cook these things without the fermentation process, and that will be much better for health. Okay? So you can make the idli, you can make the dosas without the fermented part. Is that it? Yes. Okay, great, because I like dosas. They're very nice. Okay. Oh, okay, I want to taste a unfermented one, okay? Sorry? Coconut is good for you, yes. So, yeah, coconut is good for you, but again, think about how you open the coconut. Can you eat the coconut like this? No, you need a big machete. So what I'm saying is that when you use a coconut, use small amounts, quantities. Okay, so anything fermented else, anything that you guys eat that are fermented?
Can we substitute coconut milk for animal milk?
Can you substitute coconut milk for animal milk? You could, but I would not substitute it 1-to-1. Coconut milk is much fattier in content, and I think that you should use less or add water to it. Yeah. Any other fermented foods you guys eat? Soya milk is fermented? Soya curd. Soy sauce, yeah. Try to find some soy sauce that's unfermented, or make your own, or just use salt. Okay, so nothing is coming up, so I want to tell you about grapes. Grapes, did I tell you? Yeah, grapes ferment very easily, so we don't eat it together with any kind of other foods. We just eat grapes by themselves. Sorry? Dry grapes, raisins. Yeah, that makes sense too, huh? That you should eat the raisins by itself. Once in a while we'll use a small amount of raisins in a salad or something, but principle-wise, it's probably not so good. Yeah. Okay. All these things we talked about, what we should eat and what we should not eat. But even more important than what we should not eat is that we do not eat in between meals and that we do not overeat. Because even if we eat all the good foods, but we overeat, that's going to be harmful for our health. Even if we eat all the good foods, but we eat in between meals, I feel hungry, so I'll just eat whenever, then you're going to harm your stomach because you're not going to give the stomach ample time to rest that it needs. Okay, so now we can take, time is up. Does anybody have any questions? I'm afraid to ask. Yeah, hands up so I can see. Yes.
Like digestion time for vegetables, fruits, how much it is? Like how much time does it take for vegetables to digest, fruits to digest, grains to digest? How many hours gap should be there between one meal and the other?
For the different foods to digest, I don't know. I mean, I've seen different, things that people have written, but I don't know. If you follow the principles that I've given you, these are the simple principles. If you want to study in depth, there's so much that you can study, and then don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, the others, and what's alkaline, what's not, what's, those kinds of things. But this is what Mrs. Choi has done with her sanitarium for the last 33 years, and you've heard already the results. So there are so many people that are being healed just by using these simple principles. So the extra principles that you learn in addition, this is up to you. But we can keep it simple. Secondly, the time between meals. Ellen White recommends between 5 and 6 hours, yes, between the meals. I think she says 5 and 6, but in the Bethel Sanitarium, we asked her about this because actually we have the schedule of eating at 8 o'clock and 1 o'clock, which is 5 hours, right? And then 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock is dinner. The reason why they do that there is because of their schedule and because the patients, they need to eat dinner. So even though it's a fruit dinner, that's a schedule that they need to fit the lifestyle there for the patients and for, whatever. And so make sure that there's enough space for the digestion to complete. That's why we tell you, I don't know if I told you guys this, but you can know if you're overeating if after 3 hours you still feel full. After 3 hours, you should feel hungry. That means your food is digested, and that's why you drink water after 3 hours after eating a meal. 2 hours after eating fruit, though. Okay? So that's how you can know if you overeat. And so by the time, 3 hours after you eat, let's say you start eating at 8 o'clock, and 3 hours later is 11 o'clock, right? So 11 o'clock, you ask your stomach, have I digested my food? And then the stomach says, yes, okay, then you drink water. But if your food hasn't finished digesting, don't drink water yet. Wait until it's finished digesting. And then you drink water up until 30 minutes before the next meal. Okay? So if you're going to be eating at 1 p.m., you finish drinking your water at 12:30 p.m. So then you allow your digestive juices to start producing and getting ready to eat your meal. So during that time, you have about an hour or so, hour and a half to drink your water. And so during that time, you should feel that hunger. And then you can eat your next meal. Okay, mushrooms.
Not included in Genesis.
Yeah, it's a fungus. But in the Bethel Sanitarium, they do use it. They use it for, in Korea, as they do the cooking, if you cook without oil and you cook without MSG and flavor enhancers, the food is not so tasty. So another method that they use is to make a vegetable broth. And when you use some vegetables and you take out the flavorings from the vegetables, then the broth is very tasty, right? And so then when you make soups with that or you cook vegetables with that, it makes the food still taste good. And so when they make the vegetable broth, they'll use seaweed and the mushrooms, the shiitake mushrooms. Yeah, I think just those two things, and it makes a nice broth. There's a lot of debate about the mushrooms. I heard that Weimar doesn't use mushrooms. That's something that I think you can determine and research about.
What is the rationale for having 3 meals?
The 3 meals is for the patients. Ellen White says that eating 2 meals for most people is beneficial if they're not doing a lot of manual labor that requires a lot of energy. That is true. However, for patients, in order to provide for the nutrients that they need and also to transition them from their old lifestyles to their new lifestyles, they use the 3 meals. But the 3 meals are not 3 full meals. We have the 2 meals in the day, and then the evening is always just a light fruit meal. And eating the light fruit meal allows the stomach to digest the food completely before going to sleep. And so what's important is that your stomach is completely empty, that your stomach is resting when your body goes to rest, to sleep at night. Fruit may not be enough for children. Growing children, they need to eat some more. But in the evening, they need to eat light. So they could eat fruit together with some kind of grain, maybe a piece of bread or some rice or something. Pray to God that all things may become possible. One thing that's really good about drinking water is to get into the habit of drinking in the morning when you wake up. So Mrs. Choi told you when you wake up in the morning, brush your teeth, and then drink water, right? So if the children wake up early enough, then you can teach them that. And okay, drink, 300 mils, one glass of water when you wake up. And then 30 minutes later, okay, drink another glass of water. If you do that, you've knocked out a good portion of the water that you need during the day. And then you just teach them. Sometimes, on these days on the smartphones, they have even apps of what time to drink water. Ding, it rings a bell, right? Once you get into the habit, it's really great. Because what I do is I always carry around my water bottle. And so I know 3 hours after my meal, then I drink the water. But if I miss that time, then my body reacts. Then when I eat my meal, I feel thirsty. But if I drink plenty of water in the right times throughout the day, then I don't feel thirsty at all. And I don't feel thirsty during my meals. So it is really a habit. So help them, because they'll do much better in school. They'll be better students if you can help them eat well, drink water, and to sleep well at night, exercise, all the principles. Okay, time is really escaping. So tomorrow, I'm not going to be speaking. I think maybe Sam, you're going to be speaking tomorrow for 2:30? Pam is going to be speaking tomorrow at 2:30, and then on Wednesday, I will come back and I will do one last session. I'll be talking about the combination of fruits and vegetables, and I'll be talking about, and I'll be taking questions. We'll have more time for questions and answers, okay? And so if you have any personal, questions you want to ask me individually, that's fine too. Okay, let's pray as we end here. Dear Father in heaven, thank you so much. You are so good to us, and thank you for wanting to save each one of us. You want to save us for eternity, and you also want to help us to be healthy here on this earth. Lord, we want to love you, so please keep revealing yourself, your wonderful character to us, and help us to respond by loving you, loving others, and sharing with others this great news that you have given to us. Please help us to be prepared for your soon coming, and help us to help others become prepared as well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.